let's get together again. We have a dynamic group. So, just to identify, there they are on the wall, and it's Michael Gill, the editor of Ham magazine, which is out there. Lane cut this way short because of time, but you have their whole bios, and they're extensive and wonderful. There's Elaine Cooper, who is an artist who works with painting, sound, video, text, and an occasion performance. She is a teacher full-time at the Cleveland Institute of Art and is head of painting. Jill Snyder, Mocha. Christine DeSalo, you might not know as well because she's new to Cleveland, but boy, does she fit in. And she is going to be one of our dynamic leaders as the director of spaces now. But she knows artists, she knows the way around, and she knows funding sources. And this is about artists, local artists. It leads right from the last one, collectors and art lovers today. Where are we all in this picture?
She started with Michael. But everybody, the crowd hadn't settled. The crowd hadn't settled. And now the crowd settled. So it's a little after 12:10. We're going to, since we started late, we're going to go a little bit long, but not too much longer, to about 12:45 or so. Which means if you have questions or comments that you feel ought to be part of helping us think about where we go from here and the role that these institutions and three institutions and a media outlet walk into a bar, what they can do to help us and to help move this all forward, then start lining up. But Mike Gill, I think I'd like to start with you and ask you to talk a little bit about what you, listening this morning to the last panel and the panel before that. I mean, where are the big needs right now that are things that are actually things that can be executed?
I think a lot of the ideas have been touched on that have to do with sustaining this ecosystem that we've built. One of them certainly is communication, and I've been sort of intrigued to watch for the past decade or so as all this activity has truly ramped up and seen great success in these neighborhoods. At the same time, due to the fate of print media, we've seen coverage of what's going on in the art scene go exactly the opposite way. So that was sort of the genesis. The response of the visual art community was to create Can Journal. There was, a few years ago, almost nothing in print in Cleveland covering the visual art scene, communicating about it. And that was how Can was born. And, reaching these audiences was a significant goal. I think it made a big difference that this came from the galleries themselves. It would have been a very different thing for someone to come outside, from the outside, and say, let's create a magazine about art in Cleveland. The fact that it came from arts organizations, I think, was really attractive to others, and grown not only in response to that need, but because the organizations, I think, feel empowered by having created this medium. Reaching the audience is the constant challenge. We're evolving Can to be more effective online. We print 10,000 copies each time and distribute around the county in a couple hundred places, but clearly we're not reaching that people.
Let me jump over here to you, Lane, to talk about one of the challenges that was put forward very early on today was about the need for a terminal degree at Cleveland Institute of Art. So you get a chance to speak to that. But then also, what do you see as the role that CIA is playing today and ought to be playing in the coming years?
In terms of this idea of a terminal degree at the Cleveland Institute of Art, that's been something that's been talked about for many years now. And a lot of groundwork has been done. I think that Kathleen and some other people talked about how certain programs and projects, you know, somebody was talking about in relationship to an arts festival or an arts fair, how many years it takes to develop something like that. And the same thing's true in terms of a quality kind of terminal degree. I think there are opportunities for CIA to partner with institutions like Kent and that sort of thing. Kent certainly has produced some excellent artists and is home to some really first-rate international and national artists that are really and truly part of our community. So I think that's an important resource for us at the Cleveland Institute of Art. I've personally recently been in conversation with our Vice President of Academic Affairs, Chris Whitty, and we've talked about doing more research towards this and trying to get something online in the not too distant future. I don't want to say a lot about that, but we're very conscious of not, one of the hallmarks of our conversation is to not deplete the very fine programs that exist within the state. And I think that, you know, our focus is going to have to be on how do we act as a nexus point between hybrid practices and that sort of thing. How do we provide a nexus point for hybrid practices and that sort of thing? So we're working on it. Let me say that.
When you say concerned about depleting resources, are you worried that the pie is finite?
Right. I mean, it's not just that it's finite, it's that you don't want to undermine the very fine work that other institutions are doing. And you want to make sure that you leverage what our strengths are to their best ability. And we have some incredible strengths. And one of the great places that CIA distinguishes itself in the visual arts is that we support all types of contemporary practices. But in particular, we have a lot of young artists and faculty who work in hybrid fashion. You know, they work in more than one discipline, and it's very much a contemporary model of practice. And I think that that's one of the places that our strength lies.
Christine and Jill, can you talk about the roles that your respective institutions play, Spaces and MoCA, in nurturing the community? You're providing space for a lot of conversations, for a lot of engagement, but there's also a role you play in nurturing the community of artists and the creative workforce. Christine, maybe you could start.
Well, I think it's very important, actually. I know we're talking about the state of arts in Cleveland and Northeast Ohio. I think it's very important to look beyond Cleveland as well and bring that into this conversation. And I very much see Spaces as part of that. We have a residency program where we bring artists from around the world and also Cleveland to Spaces, and we commission creation of new work. And then we have all sorts of support programs built in around that so that our audiences can be in touch with how artists are making work, what they're thinking about, what are some issues that are really prevalent in the international and national dialogue, and that somehow relate to what is important here. So for us, it's really that exchange, and I think that's how we create our community.
Jill.
To just play off on what Christina just said, I do think what's core similarity between us is a lot of emphasis on the voice of the artist as being a place that both can be. I mean, what I heard today was that there's this sort of broad interest in accessibility, and I think this panel also wants to talk about how artists can become a place of aspiration, where you set an example which people can work up and towards in terms of professionalism or sophistication or ideas. And I think that's the wonderful thing about bringing in the artist and the voice of the artist is that they can provide both of those avenues. So I think having a place where the living artists can come and present ideas and interact with as many different audiences as possible. MoCA, I think, is a pretty broad platform, so our programming ranges from artists who can be active and present during Family Day and engage with families and kids, and or at the same time, or with we have a program which is ACE program, which is focused on teens who are interested and just sort of at the age where they may be self-identifying as artists and thinking about becoming artists. They have a chance to work intensely with the artists who we bring, either regionally or internationally. And also a platform where an artist can come and talk deeply about their work and the ideas. And that's a self-selecting audience who might come, and often it is an audience that resonates with the audience that might be affiliated with the Institute or the art schools or the professional artist community. So I think for us, and especially with our new building, our new location, and our expanded impact in the community, really building as wide a platform of programming has been really our challenge and our interest.
As, from my point of view, as somebody who's not, I'm really not of the arts community, I'm more sort of this public affairs thing. And I see that there's been, in the last few years, a proliferation of social opportunities in different segments of the community. The startup community and the tech community has been doing a lot of events. There's TechPine and other events that have been happening that serve to, and demo days and things like that serve to create kind of these social opportunities to build community where community didn't exist before. And you have these upstart organizations like Launch House and Flash Arts and others. In the arts community, are there enough of those sort of structured but informal opportunities to bring artists together to drink and for new ideas to foment collaborations to be born?
Well, the drinking part is an interesting thing at the moment. But so in a sense, every time we have an opening, these are social occasions where people get together and talk about what the work is. I think an interesting thing in the past 10 or 15 years in town, Zygo Press is 18 years old now. And I print there, that's one of the places where I spend a lot of time. And one of the most exciting things about that place to me is that you have that. You have people coming during 24 hours really, but during daylight hours you can count on finding other printmakers there making work to look at what you're working on, to ask you questions about it. And there are half a dozen different venues where that sort of thing is going on. They've sprung up around specific disciplines that require equipment, like printmaking, like paper making, like old school photography, like woodworking, ceramic work. These are all relatively new, you know. I think that's going on. I think our challenge is taking that into the audience more than we've been successful. I sort of admire the initiatives taken by the classical music community. You know, you can get free tickets for your children to Blossoms, any concert, any number of kids, you know. And what a great thing for them to be able to do and then to do. The art exhibits are already free. You know, we don't have that step to take. It's maybe a different kind of a challenge for us.
I'd like to point out, or like to add to that, I mean, your comment about drinking was made lightly, but what it signals, what it talks about is this relaxed atmosphere where artists can talk about and exchange ideas, and you kind of get that synergy going. And so in recent years, there's been development of a lot of informal crit groups, and there have been people who get together and talk about ideas, you know, like they'll go to a bar and sit down and really kind of hash things out, as well as everybody's talking about after openings, and certainly after some of the MOCA talks, there's really robust exchange of ideas, and I think people really do get excited. I think the one thing, I think Cleveland is, in the region, is replete with that kind of conversation. However, I think one of the things that we want to do a more robust job of doing, and I think CAN fills a really huge part of this, but I really think we need to cultivate an even more diverse set of voices in terms of critical discourse. I think that that's one of the things that's going to tie all of these different kinds of communities together and help inform artists, not just what's going on in their little area of the universe, but also what's going on in other areas of the universe. And I think it's got to be different kinds of discourse. And we've got that. Not to say that we don't have some of that, but certainly I think we can cultivate a more diverse set of voices in the public.
So, do you have something there?
Well, I was thinking of, I agree with Lena, and I think that it's the role of the institutions, I think, and the ones that we represent here, to model that and to try to find as many different perspectives as possible. I think for MoCA, what interests me in how we approach our different exhibitions and different exhibition seasons is that our different exhibitions have different themes and different content. And so in a particular season, we might, like for example, as you know, this past summer we had Sister Karita Kent, a social activist nun who was also a printmaker. Wow, what a great platform. We could really start engaging and looking at social activism and artists as social activists. And we created, together with Earl Pike, who was a fantastic community organizer, to put together a series of programs, of events where social activists came and engaged with Sister Karita Kent's work. And I found that very profound, and because it opened up a whole new way, a dialogue, maybe a little different than what Lane was talking about, which is a more disciplined, professional way in which the art profession is asking questions of itself. But I do think it's equally important to bring in voices of, in this case, people who are deeply committed to the discipline of poverty, or of investigating poverty, or something having to do with human rights, and looking at the art and the way in which how you can find that synergy. So I think generally the idea of creating a dialogue around the ideas is really what I think we are all about, is making sure that we connect art to ideas, because that's really what I think has the impact and resonance with whoever it is who is encountering the art, and that it's not, I think, it's not reduced to a set of criteria that are, I think, not especially productive. Oh, it's pretty, or I liked it, or just giving people vocabulary that's much more complex in which to look and engage in art. What we talk about at MoCA is becoming visual thinkers and developing a critical vocabulary of being able to know how to engage with art.
If I could add to that, I'm very interested in creating a deeper level of thinking, especially around spaces programming and within our audience. And it's sort of, to take it back to something that Hannah said on the previous panel, what are we making here? Let's reevaluate. Maybe we don't need to market so much anymore, but maybe we need to think more about what we're making and then present that. Again, externally, outside of Cleveland, when I was sort of figuring out, do I want to move to this new city, from the city that I grew up in, I had no idea that I could exist here as a creative professional. I wasn't aware of the opportunities in Cleveland. It's so clear, just by the people on the stage and the people in the audience, that there is so much going on here, and who knows about it outside of here. So I just want to make sure that we are creating a dialogue that puts that before it, and says we are really interested in using art as a social tool, which I think at MoCA, so many of your exhibitions really discuss that. And also, having more writers, Michael Gill. I'm so glad that you're sitting right next to me, because we've spent so much time talking about the lack of critical discourse here, and it just has to change.
It's an ongoing challenge. I mean, when I worked at weekly newspapers for years as art editor before starting the Penn Journal, and the gradual decline in writing about the arts generally, criticism in particular, and even more specifically visual art criticism is just sort of an ongoing thing. That has been at various times the first thing cut from some of the papers we found. And I think that the challenge is for somebody to take it up, not because it's going to yield a paper a profit. This is exactly the thinking that has driven those decisions. That's an interesting possibility for Penn Journal, because it's created and sustained by people who believe in the idea of this form, this communication. So for example, were we to get into regular criticism, which we're talking about, we wouldn't be doing it on the hope that it will bring us X number of advertising dollars, which we see a commitment to those ideas. And that's really a change in the way we view media. You know, all our news outlets mostly, with the exception of public media, are private for-profit entities that pay for their pages, they pay the writers to write as we do, and they need to make money. And it's sometimes difficult to see the direct correlation between critical writing about ideas and visual art and advertising dollars paid. That's challenging.
You know, just to tag on to that, the online realm has provided a lot of opportunities now for publishing, art writing, and that kind of thing. And I'm on the board of Art Hopper, and I just want to put a plug in for Art Hopper. It's, you know, still very much in its nascent stage, and it's nonprofit and all of that sort of thing. One of our greatest challenges is identifying writers to write for Art Hopper and to review shows and to offer critical dialogue. So, you know, while we're sitting here and I have a microphone in front of me, if anybody out there wants to submit to Art Hopper, there's a nice submission page. But I'd also like to say that in addition to Art Hopper and Can and the Plain Dealer and now Scene, I know Josh Usmani has just been hired in as their arts editor, I think. Yay, congratulations, Josh. But we need even, you know, one symptom of a really healthy art ecosystem is that there's a lot of opportunity for these things and that we're not just competing for dollars. Do you know what I'm saying? And that there's a robust audience also for this dialogue.
And why aren't there more blogs about art here? I'm just so surprised by that. We have such a strong community of students, you know, who should be going to shows every single Friday and Saturday and discussing it. And maybe they're talking about it in class. Why aren't they talking about it so everyone else can hear their opinion?
The Spaces have a blog?
We do, and we've just started doing kids' art reviews. So we're asking kids ages 5 to 12 to come and look at our work and be very opinionated. And I think, you know, criticism should hurt a little. And kids are very willing to come in and be honest, and that's the only way that we're going to grow.
I'm struck a little bit by this call for more criticism. I read art criticism at times, but I mean, the sense that the general public, I think, has about art and art criticism is that, like, I'm not qualified to have an opinion. And while you and I may know that that's not true, that everybody's opinion matters, I think that's a perception challenge in some ways. I'm intrigued, though, that this conversation has begun describing what a healthier ecosystem would look like, and I want to pursue that and invite all of you to help us pursue that with your descriptors of what you think a healthier arts ecosystem might look like. That's also a prompt to come and make yourself available to the microphone if you so desire. Go
And
ahead.
I just want to make a comment about that, because I think we're talking, you know, in a way, you know, picking up on some of the conversation about previous panels is sort of challenging this idea of, you know, you only like what you know. And I think that essentially what we are all aspiring to do is to broaden, to give people tools so that they can approach art, all art, with a way of examining beyond the familiar, which is what art does for us, right? It challenges us to think in new ways. And it isn't to say that you're not going to end up after that query to say, I still don't like it. But at least you have gone through a process of inquiry that doesn't just shut the door from the moment you step in front of something, and because it's unfamiliar, you say it's not for me. And I think that for those of us who work in the contemporary art arena, that is a familiar behavior. And I think that behavior needs to be modeled by all, you know, needs to be challenged, modeled by all of us, and that it's a continuum dance. So I think that it may culminate in very sophisticated kinds of dialogues that happen in art journals. It's a broad spectrum that can begin with kids, that can begin with, we have a methodology with our kids who come for their tours, which is visual thinking strategy, which just starts, what do you see? How do you say that? So it's no different in a way than any discipline, right? Physics. You don't start by being, a molecular scientist. You start in school by learning how to have a certain dialogue around inquiry. And we don't provide that dialogue around art as nearly as adequate of a way that gives people those tools, nor do I think that our civic leaders seem to not be equipped with the vocabulary. I mean, I think, you think about some of the great leaders, like the great Czech leader, whose name escapes me, who was the poet. Yes, wouldn't that be amazing if we had a politician who also was an artist and who actually said,
George W. Bush.
Okay, we're not going to go there. But I think you get what I mean. In other countries, I think there is more of a presence of poets and writers and artists who assume civic roles. And not that we don't have them, but I'm just sort of challenging us to not have art be marginalized as a discipline and something that they don't get. Well, a lot of people don't get physics either, So, but we don't say, I don't like physics, so therefore it's not good, But I think that is the equation that people say about art. I don't know it, I don't get it, and I don't like it, therefore it's not good. That's dumb, right? We wouldn't accept that in any other discipline.
We accept it in math all the time. There's all these people who say I'm not a math person, right?
Right, but you then don't say math is dumb, right?
No, they just opt out. Sure.
My name is Marcus Lance. I'm a freelance keyboardist. So I'm not a visual artist, but we have the same type of challenge. I don't play mainstream music. My music is different. It's different. So you got, I play in Universal Circle and see people walk by like, but then they'll still be standing there because they're listening. And I've gone to different neighborhoods, all kind of neighborhoods, different neighborhoods, Memphis University, I've been St. Clair, all different type of areas, West Side, everywhere. Just spontaneously playing music to see how people respond to it. And I've learned, no matter what type of social class art is transferable anywhere. You can play the same type of, have the same type of art anywhere. It's very fluid. It's very fluid. Art is something that can be, you can look at a piece and one person's going to say something totally different from the next, but they're all going to have ideas and they all become one. That's what makes art all the way around. It makes it so great because it's so flexible. It's definitely flexible and it's very fluid. And that's what I think we should just bring it to. It needs to be something that just needs to be brought to people that are in these different areas that we're not even thinking of, outside of the universal circles and the arts districts that people think of automatically. Somewhere that's totally different, that's outside of the comfort zone, if you will. And just do it spontaneously. And people are going to listen. People are going to listen. There's going to be somebody walking by and be like, never heard that before, but I like it. And they're going to remember that. And then they're going to see you somewhere else. It's not that big. They're going to see you somewhere else. And that art is going to keep staying in their mind. They keep seeing you show up to these different places. Like with this saxophone, man. That's what he did. He used to show up everywhere. Now everybody knows who he is. And that's the way he's thinking of art. That's good.
Thank you.
So we're lucky enough to have Francis Circle, and the Museum of Art was prescient enough to send out ambassadors to all the schools and community groups. And there's a democracy almost that you can participate in this. It's not a lot of money, but there's guidance for you to participate in this, and the teaching is free, and then they're smart enough to do community outreach. So Waterloo Arts Fest, some of those folks are now a part of the Arts Fest. So it's not just isolated to University Circle anymore, and all all the institutions are also a part of this. So this is huge. I mean, people might not know what the circle is, but it's grown in 25 years into something massive. So why not capitalize on that and send more ambassadors? Like Museum Park had like a inflatable art booth where you can go talk about whatever you want, and it was almost like the StoryCorps on NPR. And more of that makes it democratic.
Yes.
If I can speak to this idea of spontaneity a little bit more and taking advantage of these opportunities. As an organization, Spaces and certainly others in town, I'm sure, struggle with spontaneity because there's this infrastructure and, there's a limited amount of time, and we are held very responsible for reporting to our funders and making sure that what we said we were going to do a year ago, when we were applying for this money, we actually see it through, and that sometimes leaves very little time and resources to do these other more spontaneous things. And I agree, art should be everywhere, art should be spontaneous. We have a lemonade stand where we offer free high fives and give people lemonade, and we'll go to, Arts in August in Lincoln Park in Tremont, and, we'll set it up, at 78th Street Studios, and that's like one really tiny thing, and hopefully we talk to maybe 20, 30 people who are really interested that night. But yeah, I'm not defending a lack of spontaneity, I'm just saying there's infrastructure, and it's tough to navigate that sometimes.
And I'd like to tag on to that, some of the spontaneity is out there, it really does happen, and it happens outside of organizations. I mean, one of the hallmarks of a really healthy art ecosystem, and I certainly think we have, what we've done in the past 15 years is just amazing, it's remarkable. But there are grassroots organizations who aren't associated necessarily with any kind of organization who go out there, and they're much more able to be spontaneous. And we need those folks, and we want to encourage those folks, and we want to make an environment that is receptive to that. And one way that happens is through, folks like Matt Zone, frankly, and legislation and laws that allow a certain amount of freedom in that regard. Then we do also need organizations that educate the next fans. We were talking a lot about how it's analogous to baseball or football, and you've got to cultivate the young people. But in addition to this, we also need, we need to feed this other segment of the art community, and that is, those are the artists who are deeply engaged in the work that they're making. And Cleveland is incredibly rich in terms of the quality of artists that there are working here. I mean, we have people like Barry Underwood and Sarah Cabot and Paula Keefe and Gianna Comito, who are just incredible artists and who've chosen to live here in Cleveland, right? So how do we, that part of the art community is equally important. The fact that there's this sophisticated, heaven forbid I say that word, but that there's this community of artists who can stand next to any artist in the world, frankly. And how do we continue to cultivate that part of it as well? And I would say that some of the art dialogue or critical dialogue that we're calling for feeds that part of the community. It attracts artists of that caliber, attract attention to the region. It creates a reputation. It helps other people outside of our region understand that we are a world-class city. We've got a football team, we've got a baseball team, we have incredible educational institutions, we have places like MoCA and Spaces, we have spontaneous out in the street, we have community works, we have all of these amazing things, and we have a world-class community of artists who choose to live and work here.
Get close to the microphone, so we're hearing you.
Sorry. I was kind of thinking earlier how you're talking about bringing an audience and whatnot. And I just had a kind of question. I wonder if I could just ask the audience, how many of you took RTA today? Not too many. Now, why isn't it that more art is on the RTA when it connects all the neighborhoods that you're talking about? And it would be things like the Browns game or St. Patrick's Day or anything for that matter. And how many hundreds of thousands of people that have not experienced the arts would be then able to experience it and be, I don't know kind of where to go with it from there.
I know.
It acts like an art group.
Yeah.
Do you mean RTA as a canvas? Buses as a vehicle for art, or as a transportation system to get there?
Well,
I think we, as a healthy art city, or one that is continually striving to be, we need to ask if our zoning and our city infrastructure matches our creative vision. And I'm not convinced it does here. We've had an enlightened city council member on the previous panel who clearly gets it. Joe Simperman gets it. But if our transportation can't bring people to where they should be going, how does anybody get to see it, really?
Well, I mean, that's hard to speak, but Joe Cowrie isn't here, so he can't speak to what the RTA can and can't do and wants to do.
Also, transparency, too. I mean, the whole Leonardi saga. Now it's more difficult to create an interesting atmosphere at openings. Make things more transparent.
Sure.
My name is Rick Ortmeyer. I'm an architect with Fossil Design Partnership, but I'm also on the board of Friends of Freedom for the Arts. And to your question about what may a healthy ecosystem look like in the future, just a quick comment that Includes for the Arts, for those who aren't aware, is already kind of an experiment that has become more and more formalized in what arts education looks like at the elementary level and high school level. And I also wanted to make people aware that there's a really, I think, critical conversation around what the future of arts education at the K through 8 level looks like in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District through a study that was funded in part by the Cleveland and Dunn Foundation, which we appreciate. So part of that is, getting back to the last conversation, forging public-private partnerships, as well as infusing new energy into arts education throughout the school district where it has been lacking ever since arts funding has fallen away since the 80s. So I guess the question as a follow-up to that, first of all, to make you aware that that is happening, and I would encourage everyone to participate in this conversation. But how, as representatives of some of the important arts organizations, how you might see reaching back into the school district yourselves to create that healthy ecosystem from the ground up, to create the future artists, advocates, and patrons from within the city.
Anybody want to respond, or?
I think that one of the ways that we can contribute to that, and I'm really excited to hear the things that you say, and I think that one of the ways that we can and do contribute to that is to partner with educational organizations, but also to make our voices heard and to make sure that our resources are accessible to these institutions, to our educational institutions, with our doors open, and we make it really easy for them to come into our, like in my case, the Cleveland Institute of Art. We, for instance, have a program that internally is called Arts and Achievement, where we offer scholarships to students from the Cuyahoga educational metro system, school district.
Cleveland Metropolitan School
Yes,
District?
Cleveland Metropolitan. Thank you. Yeah, it's, I was like,
You're getting there.
yeah, I'm getting there. So, I mean, we do a lot of things like that, and I know that MOCA has the ACE program, right, where they partner with schools and that sort of thing. I think as well.
CIA also has the next program.
Yeah, we have the next program that happens in the fall every year. We're going to start doing a program in the spring called FIRST that's directed at educators, teachers, and helping them develop programming for the classes and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of these institutions, reach out and partner with with schools and that kind of thing, and certainly it's in our best interest too. I think the way going forward is just to continue to do that and maybe try to cultivate more forums where there's an open exchange from, on our side, what is it that we think young, burgeoning, even elementary school children need to understand in order to really get art and really get excited about art. And then on your side, what is it that you need from us that we can help facilitate what you're doing?
Anything else to add?
I'm stricken by the breadth of challenges to make those kinds of connections. So first, connecting to curriculum at a time when schools, especially public schools, are being judged on a very limited set of criteria. You have to ask the school system to make a commitment to that. And then you need to build the relationships, because the schools, generally speaking, don't have the capacity for that programming. You need to connect with existing community organizations that do have the capacity. Those relationships, some of them exist, but there's not a whole lot really. And then there's the transportation issue. My wife happens to be a public school teacher, and I know that if she wants to take a group of kids to the Cleveland Museum of Art, she has to get a bus, and she doesn't have the money, so she has to get a grant. And all these things take time and diligence on the part of, and it's all on the teacher, so the person who is adding this to their regular full-time job is asked to do all that in additional. They're big challenges that we just obviously need to take on if it's going to happen.
I just add to that, I think the School of the Arts is actually the most favorable partner, because they are already committed to the idea that to value the arts. I mean, we work with the municipal school district, and we actually have subsidies for busing, and often at the end of the year we can't even use it up because the teachers can't make the case to compete with other priorities and the time, because there's so many other expectations that they have. So I would say that it's complicated.
We're more or less out of time, but if you want a final comment, we'll give it to you now.
My name is Deborah Bell, and I teach at Basic History and Dan is on our board. But Cleveland teachers now, especially art teachers, there was a time when we had a monthly meeting where the veteran teachers like myself, we would sort of teach some of the work, like, this is all that's out there. And there are funds for bus transportation. It is just a lot of the newer teachers and principals don't know that those funds are out there. And so somehow all of these organizations should, like Playhouse Square, once a year, they have this event where they invite teachers, so teachers can see what is all happening arts-wise, and maybe they need to just put a lot more of that information out just to bring in all of these movies, because in the past 5 years, more than 50% of the veteran art teachers, we're out of here. And you're gonna have all of these baby teachers not knowing anything about the city, not knowing how to get to these places, not knowing that if you want a field trip to the art museum, that there's funding to pay for that field trip. And if you are living close to the art museum, University Circle buses will pick you up and take you there free. So I think that it is not that money isn't there. People just don't know how to get it. because we don't get together as a group of art, music, and PE teachers like we used to, once a month, all day, to sort of mentor all of these movies. And in the past 5 to 10 years, we haven't had that opportunity.
No
And,
communication
yeah.
that's-
And like this year, there's maybe 50 art and music teachers who are retired.
Right.
So it's gonna be the
Do
same.
it again.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me. Mike Gill, Christina Boswell, Joe Snyder, and Lane Cooper, thank you very much for your time.
All right, so today you've had a chance to gain some insight from some of our leaders in the arts community, but you've also had a chance to inform them of what our community thinks about the visual arts in Cleveland. So thank you for being a part of this, and especially thank you to our amazing panelists. Let's give them all a round of applause. And to Dan Welford for being a great moderator. He's done a great job. Thanks, Dan. We thank everybody else that did be thanked earlier. Please, as you leave, grab the self-guided tour of the Cleveland Public Library. There's a lot of amazing Cleveland art in these buildings. You don't want to miss it. The ArtNEO Masterworks catalog is also a representation of a lot of amazing Cleveland art that is in the ArtNEO collection. Please grab an evaluation and make sure you fill it out so we know what to bring you next time we do this. Thank you again, and this will be on YouTube in about a week or so, so keep your eyes open and it'll be on our website. Thank you again.